So Ed and I recorded an episode of Sox in the Basement, and then a couple hours later, the White Sox made a trade. Matt Thaiss has moved on to Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay has sent back a 25-year-old minor league outfielder who gets on base okay, who I think is hitting in the 240s right now, who's like a body. And that's probably all they were going to get if they traded away Thaiss. And they felt they had to trade him away because Korey Lee had to come back. You have Edgar Carroll up here, and Kyle Teel is playing so well, he's imminent. And you have a catcher crunch. The thing is, the show is already recorded. I think we mentioned Thaiss like 3 times. We talk about Lee being down in the minors, but it's very easy as you listen to hear that this is a move that was coming. In fact, we kind of foreshadow it, like something's going to happen. It's going to have to happen. The Sox don't get anything great, but it is funny that the player they went out and got from Tampa Bay is an outfielder, because as you're going to hear in this show, they are short at outfield in the minor leagues. Although there is one name that I find intriguing right now down there that might need one more opportunity at the major league level. So, just as you listen to Sox in the Basement, understand a deal was made, a catcher that we were lucky to get something out of enough that we could pick up another player has moved on. I don't know if the guy that they got is going to ever be anything. This is like a lotto ticket. Like maybe they see something in his swing, or maybe Tampa Bay did what Tampa Bay always does. Moved a player to another team that doesn't matter to them for good reason because they're really good at talent evaluation, and picked up a player at a bargain price because the White Sox had to move him. And then we'll be watching what he does in the future going, we should have gotten just a little bit more. But I don't know how it's all going to play out. That's the future. Right now what we have is a lot of good catching on the south side, and something had to give. On an episode of Sox in the Basement, brought to you by Cork and Carry at the Park at the corner of 33rd and Princeton, in the shadow of the ballpark. Award-winning burgers, ballpark favorites, indoor-outdoor seating, and my place for pregame, postgame, and in-game White Sox viewing. See more at corkandcarry.com. Let's get to the show. You're listening to Sox in the Basement, a production of the Broadcast Basement Limited, where every show is 30 minutes of good and comes from a basement bar on the south side of Chicago. Pull up a stool, pour a cold one, and join us right now for Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found, and always at soxinthebasement.com. I had a calm weekend. Did you have a calm weekend? I had a very, very calm weekend. How was your Memorial Day?
It was the usual stuff. It was barbecuing and, little golf action in there.
Golf action. Good for you. I had the weekend of peace. Like it was such an amazing weekend for me now that I'm through the divorce. I have 2 kids that are older, so they can keep an eye on the younger guy. My folks have a lake cottage in Rochester, Indiana, off of beautiful Lake Manitou. I spent Sunday watching birds play in the trees off the porch with the lake in front of me, sipping bourbon for like 4 hours. Because
were the birds sipping bourbon, or were you sipping bourbon?
I was sipping bourbon. I think the birds had a little bit of bourbon. I saw a bald eagle. Okay, beautiful, huge eagle. This is what happens when you have peace, right? Like I'm enjoying the post-divorce peace of just nobody's bothering me, and I'm just kind of sitting there, just kind of, And then all of a sudden I watch like an eagle come in, and the eagle kind of swoops around. He's huge, ginormous eagle, ginormous. And I've just got the time now to just sit there and just enjoy the world. And here comes the eagle, and the eagle dives into the water and pulls out like a bass. Just a huge fish. Just with its claws. And then just its talons. That's what they are, talons. And it just flies over me as if to say, look what I got. Enjoy the bourbon, Chris. That's how my weekend went. It was beautiful. I went to Tippecanoe Brewing that's in town there. Shout out to the owner, who I sat down and talked with for about an hour. You know, he was on his way to the Indy 500. Very calm, relaxing weekend. And I felt at peace with the White Sox because they had finally done the thing that you and I have yelled that they should do for months and months and months. And that is get rid of Andrew Vaughn. You couldn't wipe the smile off my face when they sent him down to the minors that day. I was telling random strangers, hey, did you hear they got rid of Andrew Vaughn? They sent him to the minors. When I told my father, we hugged.
Wow.
We hugged. They're like, oh my God, it's amazing. They sent Andrew Vaughn down today. They did? Yeah. Yeah, they made an intelligent decision. Months and months and months in the making. Like, Ed, I would love it if
months and months too late.
Oh,
but
yeah. Oh, yeah. I would love it if, like, the press that gets to talk with Getz, because he's not going to talk with us, but if the press that gets to talk with Getz would just ask him this question. I don't think this is a mean question. I think this is a reasonable question to ask. Ask it in this way. Why is it that you can see, how do I phrase this? How about this? A lot of fans felt that Andrew Vaughn shouldn't have been on the team. A lot of fans have opinions about guys that should be moved from this position or that position. They feel as though they see things sooner than the organization sees it. Why is that the case? Why do they feel that way? Like, ask it like that way. Like, why do you think fans feel that way? Give them an opportunity to explain why it just seems to take them longer to get to the things that we talked about months ago that they should be doing. Like, ever since Andrew Vaughn was sent down, this lineup that Will Venable is using, and I don't fault Will Venable, he was a brand new manager had to figure out his team. I look at the front office and say, you were watching the same thing as me. Getsy, you got the job because the chairman told everybody that you already knew what was going on in the building and knew who was good and knew who was bad, and you'd be able to turn things around quicker, and that's why you didn't go outside the organization. So you saw it. So when Ed and I are sitting here talking all off season long about where they really should line up these guys, it took until Memorial Day weekend for the White Sox to finally put together a lineup and positionally something very close to what we described. Did you see Andrew Benintendi's back? He's been the DH for 4 straight days. He's not playing in the field anymore. Who was asking about that, Ed? Was that you or me who brought that up first? It was one of us.
One of us, yeah. One of us brought up Andrew Benintendi not ever seeing the field because he'd struggled so badly with a glove.
Yeah.
And now I will say it does help Will Venable that you have something resembling the roster that he thought he was going to walk in with, because he has Josh Rojas, he has Austin Slater, and he has Mike Tauchman, which he didn't really have for the first month and a half of the season. They were all hurt.
That is true, but now look what he's able to do. He's able to put Miguel Vargas over at first base. And he even put Lenny Sosa there on Sunday against a left-handed pitcher.
And which one of us brought that up first? Was it you or me?
I think that was me. That one was me.
Okay, that was you.
That one, I was like, Lenny Sosa should be standing at first base. Like, I was like, he's a terrible fielder, but he could play first base, and he would be better than Andrew Vaughn, and he would produce more. Andrew Vaughn's in the minors. Lenny Sosa was playing first base on Sunday. All right? So, I mean, like, that's a question. I'm just so curious as to why it takes them so long to see the things that we're able to see, and I think most fans are able to see. If you look at their lineup over the last 4 days, since Andrew Vaughn was sent down and Tim Elko was not given as much rope as the broadcast team said he was going to get, I mean, they were famously on the air talking about how he's going to get all kinds of looks. He was right back down. All right? And that's fine as long as Vaughn went down. If Elko would have gone down and Vaughn hadn't gone down, I'd be screaming this entire show. I mean, it'd just be the broken record of me asking, what the hell are you doing? So at least they sent Vaughn down. I think that's where the relief comes from, because there was rumors that Elko had been spotted in Charlotte. So everybody just assumed he was the only one being sent down, because who gets rid of both of their first basemen? But the White Sox did. They were like, you know what?
A team that has other first base options, that's who.
Right. And so then Vaughn's announced after Elko as another guy that's been sent down, because you're activating Tauchman, you're activating Benintendi. And since that's happened, they faced right-handed pitching 3 times, left-handed pitching on Sunday. Against the right-handed pitching, the lineup is the exact same thing. Your starting catcher's Edgar Caro. Your starting first baseman's Miguel Vargas. Lenny Sosa's the second baseman. Shortstop's Mydroth, who looks great up in that leadoff spot. Rojas stands at third. In center field, you got Luis Robert Jr., Mike Tauchman's a right fielder, and Joshua Palacios. I don't know where the hell you came from. You're standing out in left. And I looked over the last 30 days, he actually has an OPS over 720. I don't understand it. He's got a negative .6 wins above replacement according to Baseball Reference, but somehow, some way, Joshua Palacios is an everyday outfielder for a Major League Baseball team. But that's where they're at. And then what they did on Sunday, what Venable did on Sunday, and I don't know how much of this is against lefties, we're going to see this all the time, or was it Sunday give guys a break or whatever he's going to do. But on Sunday, he pulls out, who did he take out of the lineup? He takes out Rojas. That's who he takes out of the lineup. He takes Rojas out of the lineup. He puts Vinny Capper in at shortstop and rotates everybody around, putting Sosa at first, moving Mydroth over to second, and then moving Vargas across the field back to third base. He puts Slater out in left and Michael A. Taylor in right field. And that's what he ran on Sunday. And what did the White Sox do this weekend? They scored 10 runs, 4 runs, 4 runs, and then 1 run on Memorial Day. The 2 losses were 1-run games, and they had a chance to win both of those games.
Very much so. And this gets back to something you and I talked about very recently as well, which is one of the things that's going to hold this team back is that there was not really a setup for there to be enough competent veterans around to allow this team to have opportunities to capitalize on games where they have the opportunities. Okay. They didn't have the bullpen in those 2 losses because Jordan Leisure gives up the one against the Rangers, and then Cam Boozer comes in and gives it up, gives up a tie game to the Mets on Memorial Day, before, was it Wilson that lost it in the 9th? And when you don't have the bullpen there, you're not going to win the 1-run games. But what was nice to see was that they were in those games, right? And there was an opportunity, at least on Memorial Day, for Edgar Caro with the bases loaded. If he gets a base hit, it's a completely different outcome, potentially anyway. And you're getting good starting pitching, so there's definite positives here. Like you said, you're finding some peace with this. But one of the things that will be nice to see is there consistency in the lineup? And, when we don't have obvious people to yell about, it becomes a lot easier as a Sox fan to sit there and focus on the good and sit there and say, hey, this Miguel Vargas thing, let's just see how high he can climb. Let's see what Lenin Sosa really is, okay? Let's figure out if Joshua Palacios is an actual baseball player or just somebody. I don't think he's there, but it's more interesting to watch him when you're not sitting there going, oh my God, why are they, when he's not in that group of Palacios and Vaughn and Jacob Amaya, although Vinny Capra is just an Italian version of Jacob Amaya. So I don't know why he's here. But when you don't have people that are sitting there, who are known quantities to be bad, okay, then it's a lot easier to look at the positives. And I'm not really worried about a Joshua Palacios blocking anybody because Oscar Colas has joined the rest of the ex-White Sox on the Angels now. And so it's not like, other than Dominic Fletcher, who we know they hate, that there's anybody that's really like sitting down there that you're sitting there going, wow, who's going to stand in left field if, why is somebody standing in left field instead of this guy?
That might be the next thing that happens is that if they get some stability and you start to see guys flourish, then you might see them sit there and say, okay, now let's see if we can re-elevate somebody who'd been down there before, who's worked out something in the minors, and let's give them that Palacios spot. Although, and it's really interesting, look up the White Sox over the last 30 days. What did I talk about? The very low bar that I've set for this team at the plate. Very low bar. The low bar of can you hit over 700 as your OPS? Which is your on-base percentage and your slugging percentage combined. Like generally the average in Major League Baseball fluctuates a little bit, but it comes in at around 720. Over the last 30 days, the White Sox have several players who are doing this. Miguel Vargas is a 917 OPS and in 90 at-bats. Chase Meidroth has a 777 in 82 at-bats. Over 23 games, Joshua Palacios has a 722 OPS. It's inexplicable. Like he's got a 329 on base percentage and he's under 400 for his slugging, but that's pretty similar to Meidroth, who's under 400 in both of his. He just has a very high on base percentage, but he's producing at least at league average at the plate over the last month. Lenin Sosa, 721 OPS. He's hitting 284. Andrew Benintendi is back. He's only had 29 at bats over the last 30 days with the injury in the middle, but a 712 OPS. And I can even look at Mike Tauchman. I mean, it's only been 13 at bats. But he's got a 698 OPS. I mean, we'll put him on the fringes. I mean, Luis Robert Jr. is still 71 points away from the 700 mark that I've made very, very low. Just get over 700, and I will call you a productive baseball player. But a month ago, I couldn't find more than one guy who was doing this in the lineup. See what I'm saying? Like, so something, there's a little bit of a, I don't know, I don't want to call it a spark, but we're starting to find some guys who are figuring it out and flourishing. And what the White Sox are doing, and which is the right thing to do, is that they are now telling guys who are not flourishing, get out of the way because you're weighing down the guys that are rising to the top. Folks, switch to a new age of life with Hyatt Home Medical Equipment. Regain your comfort and your independence with a lift chair from Hyatt. As people age, face challenges with mobility, everyday movements like standing up from a chair, They can become difficult, painful, even dangerous. That's where lift chairs come in, and they help with your independence, your comfort, your safety. They just bring you up or lay you back down into the seat more gently, safer transitions, reduced fall risk, improved posture and circulation, enhanced independence and confidence, and helps out with some relaxation, helps out with the pain because you're able to make adjustments. Check out what Hyatt Home Medical Equipment can do for you. They're going to work with your insurance. Sometimes they get you the 0% financing for qualified individuals. See everything Hyatt has to offer at hhme.com. But you're getting rid of some of, the garbage on the edges. Moving on from Andrew Vaughn opens up opportunities and gives guys who are performing well more playing time. And all that does is back up their confidence, which goes back to what we said on the last show, right, Ed?
Well, yeah. And when you're talking about the young guys, the confidence level is extremely important. I mean, Lenyn Sosa is a guy that I'll point him out. Edgar Caro kind of falls under this as well. And Chase Mydroth seems to be, kind of an outlier in this regard. But those two guys in particular, when they're given an opportunity and they're not in a situation where they're surrounded by nothing behind them, okay, then there's some freedom to them. And Sosa's an interesting one because he's hitting 284. He's got that 721 OPS, but he's also got 20 strikeouts over only 2 walks in that scenario. So there's clearly something there that he needs to work on. But he's putting the bat on the ball and hitting it sufficiently hard enough that he's got good numbers over that time period in spite of the bloated strikeout numbers. Edgar Caro has been scuffling a little bit more. He's not as sharp as he was when he first came up. The last 30 days, 239. His slugging percentage is only 299. His OPS is only 292. His OPS is 591. His on-base percentage is 292. And he's a candidate for somebody that's got to probably figure out a way to get out of his funk, right? And so it gives them an opportunity to give him some chances to try and hit his way out of it and adjust back to the league, not that the league is adjusted to him. And so when you have those things there, and if he needs a day or two, Matt Thaiss is still... He's doing okay. He's only hitting 205, but he's getting on at a 380 rate. He's got more walks and strikeouts over the last 30 days, which means that he's not somebody who is completely useless at the plate. And you can spell these guys. You can spell the young guys a little bit more. All right. And it's good because they're not sitting there going, all right, I have to fight an Andrew Vaughn for this. So it helps their confidence. The other thing is that you've got veterans who are more interesting and are going to be more interesting on the trade market, frankly, if they get an opportunity to play. And that comes down to Mike Tauchman and Thaiss to a certain degree, but also Josh Rojas, who really kind of needs to get going and show that he's got something. But getting those guys going is more important than somebody who has been here the whole time, who is just clogging it up and is not contributing and not doing anything. And we're starting to get to that point with Luis Robert Jr., where you're starting to sit there and go, okay, well, he's either going to come out of this or they need to start thinking about what they're going to do with him because he's just not being overly productive.
But he's not blocking anybody. That's the thing, though.
But he's not blocking
anybody. He's a center fielder with nothing behind him sitting in the minors that would play center field competently that he's stopping from getting to the major leagues, right? I mean, Palacios would move out of the way before you would even think about moving Robert out of the way. But I get what you're saying. Like, what is he? And when is he going to figure it out? And I think what he is he's a guy who's not going to have that good of a season. You're not going to be able to move him for much if you do move him, and you're not picking up the $20 million option. That's unfortunate. Like when I look at this team, like I would love to see him play well, but I've already kind of marked him off in my brain as he's not going to be here next year. Either he's not going to put it together, so they're not giving him $20 million, and if he did put it together, they're going to move him. So he's just a name it stinks. I've got his picture sitting up here. I got this beautiful painting that was given to me, a few years back by a fan that sits here in the bar, but he won't be on the wall next year because he won't be a member of the team. And that's just how it'll be down here. All right. Unless you win World Series, like the guys behind me in the video, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see those guys get to stay up there forever because they brought home a ring. When I look down in the minor leagues, he isn't blocking anybody, but man, there's some interesting names down there. Have you seen what's been going on in the last 30 days down in Charlotte? Like, just as the White Sox are starting to figure it out, there might be more guys that have to be sent down or moved out of the way if these guys keep it up. Kyle Teal's hitting .368 over his last 19 games down in Charlotte with a 1081 OPS. Like, you don't have enough catchers. Like, they're going to have to figure out that. Colson Montgomery, I'm not going to ignore it. I need to see a lot more than 10 games. But since they sent Colson to go work out and figure his thing out down there in Arizona, he's had 41 official at-bats. He's hit .341 with a 1047 OPS. Now, he's never done anything close to that in AAA. He never did anything close to that in AA. So this is a very small sample size, and you got to see more. But it's something that exists down there in Charlotte. Corey jokes, folks. Does he get another chance in the outfield? Like, Palacios is standing out there, and he's over 700, and Jokes didn't do very well last time he was there, but he's been hitting well over 300 for the entire time that he's been down there, with an OPS well over 900 for the entire minor league season. And over the last 30 days, 338, 414 on base percentage, 532 slugging for a 946 OPS, and he plays left field. And Brian Ramos, look, if Miguel Vargas is going to be the first baseman, does his 864 OPS in AAA Charlotte now over the last 19 games, does that pique your interest? And by the way, Korey Lee rehabbing is hitting .302 down there, and you got to figure out what to do with him. So, I mean, guys like Vaughn, like, they said the thing, like, it was interesting. Getz was like, I had a good conversation with him. He knows he'll be back. No, he won't. No, he won't. Back in the line, Andrew, because look at all the other guys. And you only have so many spots on this team.
Well, and yeah, to your point about Brian Ramos, I mean, you can look and sit there and say, oh, he's only in 258, but he's got 3 stolen bases. He's 1-to-1 on walks to strikeouts with 11 of each over the last 30 days. 4 home runs, 11 RBIs. I mean, he's contributing. He's got a 364 on base percentage and a 500 slugging percentage, which gives him a good OPS. 258 doesn't bother me if you're getting on base. It's why I mentioned Matt Thaiss being, helpful to Edgar Caro to keep him around, because he's getting on base at a really good clip, even though he's not hitting very well right now. But you're right, Colson Montgomery, more than 10 games to prove this, but
I need more.
I need a lot more. In fact, I really don't want to see Montgomery until September. I want him to stay down there. I'm not in any hurry to see him come up. But some of the other names that you mentioned, and Brooks Baldwin is a guy that shouldn't be forgotten either. I mean, he was scuffling up here, but I'd rather see him come up and get another opportunity as a guy that was playing in the outfield and playing well.
Did you see what they're playing him in Charlotte now? I don't know how consistent this has been. He's now listed and is playing center field for them.
Well, he was spending a lot more time in the outfield than he was on the infield when he was with the White Sox. At least I felt like my eyeball test says that. I don't have the numbers in front of me.
They're short on outfilders. See, that's the thing. You're starting to find infielders. Like, if you had to look at their team, you would say stacked at catcher, right? Holy cow! I mean, stacked at catcher. You've got
Kyle Teal has really picked it up. In fact, I think he's the International League Player of the Week, Player of the Month, maybe.
Teal's down in AAA. Caro's already up here. Korey Lee, I think, is going to continue to be a guy. I mean, he's a viable catcher in the major leagues, and Matt Thaiss is as well. You're stacked at catcher, and when you start looking at the infield positions, there are some guys that are doing fairly okay, doing well actually down in AAA currently. And you're starting to find the right combination up here in the major leagues. Like, look, you're not world beaters. You're not the Yankees. You're not the Dodgers. But there's something there. The outfield is like like there's nothing in the outfield. That's why they have to take a Brooks Ball and be like, hey, do you think you can go stand in center? Because that's the thing that they're waiting on. Until Brady Montgomery, the great hope down there, who's further down in the system, starts showing up to be the eventual center fielder in 2027, most likely. And that's if it all works out, because we all know how prospects go and how potential sometimes fizzles and how development isn't linear. So you have no idea, right? But that's an issue for them. The outfield is an issue right now for the Chicago White Sox, and that's where you find most of your good hitters. Like, you're supposed to be finding guys that are hitting 30 home runs standing out there in those corner outfield positions. They're a ways away from that. So that's why maybe Brooks Baldwin's standing in center field for the eventual move of Luis Robert Jr. Like, are they like, hey, do you think he can cover enough ground out there? It's very interesting.
Well, and it would also explain why he was sent down and why Vinny Capra is still sitting up here as a utility guy, because I understand Baldwin's numbers weren't impressive up here, but if you're asking him to play a new position and hit at the major league level, it's a lot easier for him to sit there and patrol center field in Charlotte, get used to the angles, get used to how he needs to be the captain of the outfield, get used to those things. Because remember, this is a guy who was a shortstop second baseman when he was first called up, and that's what he played for the most part. So if they feel like he can handle center field, and again, it's only 5 games since he went back down, but he's hitting 409 with an 1185 OPS. So, I mean, it's not like he can't handle AAA pitching.
Andrew Vaughn's 1-for-8 since he went down.
And that's what I mean. Like it's small sample size, but it's an encouraging one. But the only other guy that's listed as an outfielder besides Corey Julks, who you mentioned, who is a guy that has had opportunities both with the Astros and with the White Sox and not stuck, right, is Zach DeLoach, who didn't really get a huge opportunity last year. But the red flag was Zach DeLoach, who's hitting 300 over the last 30 days, 895 OPS, looks good on the surface, has 19 strikeouts over 3 walks, and I
they
will
don't
beat
like
this
that.
drum.
They don't like that.
No, you know why? Because it's a red flag. It's a harbinger when a guy's at AAA and he's striking out vastly more than he's walking. It means that he's taking advantage of bad pitching down there rather than being a guy that's really working it and doing something. By way of comparison, yeah, Kyle Teal's got 15 strikeouts in that same time, but he's also got 12 walks, which means he's working counts. And he's working pitchers, and he's seeing the ball a lot better. And DeLoach, that was the big problem with him when they traded for him. That's why he was never really able to crack the Mariners outfield. The dude has too much swing and miss in his game, and when you bring him up, if he's going to do that, he's got to be able to put the ball out of the ballpark, which is also not really his forte. Which is why, again, Corey Julks becomes interesting because he's got 10 walks over 17 strikeouts in that time frame.
For the season, he's got a .429 on base percentage.
Right.
The 2 guys right in front of him who were down in the minors earlier this year who are not down there was Meidroth at .450 and Caro at .444. Like if he continues to show that he can be more selective, like that seems to be something that the White Sox value. Since they brought in their hitting guru, since Will Venable got in there, they value guys that get on base. Venable's lineup suggests that is such a big deal for him. Are you working the count and are you getting on base? Like, look, I know the kid had some opportunities. He didn't look very good last year, but nobody looked very good last year. If he continues to get on base at a high clip, there's a point where I would sit there and say, all right, we know what Palacios is. Do you want the guy who's going to have a better opportunity to hit a few more home runs?
Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement. Sox in the basement.
Sox in the Basement. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always on soxinthebasement.com.